3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone? You're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and welcome back to my second part of the new thing I'm doing here with, instead of doing each DawnOfX book, I'm kind of covering them all. I thought I could get all the DawnOfX books into one video, but you know me, I ramble on way too long. So I made it a two-part video to spare you. Try to get 6 books into one video. The first video did 4 books. I think it was pretty good. 45 minutes for 4 books. I don't know what that divides into. It's like roughly a little over 10 minutes per book. That's pretty decent. I think even Eric Breen couldn't complain about... Oh, who am I kidding? Eric Breen could complain about anything. This part is going to be 2 books. So half as many books. But the most interesting to talk about, in my opinion, surprisingly, Fallen Angels is the best book of DawnOfX. When they were announcing these books, Fallen Angels was my least... It was the book I was least interested in, despite Brian Hill being a part of the team, because I like Brian Hill a lot. These characters, I don't like. I have X-23, I think, is the stupidest character Marvel's created forever. I don't like the Krakoan Psylocke. Like, I love Psylocke, especially Asian Psylocke, the whole Mojo-verse creation with the hand type. Like, it was all really cool creation. Jim Lee, Chris Claremont. Why you'd mess with success, only failure, modern failure Marvel can explain. And then Cable, another one of the most popular characters created from Marvel in the past, you know what, it's been over 20 years now. But I mean, think about Marvel doesn't make good new characters. They haven't made good characters in forever. Cable's one of them. Like, Cable's one of the few XMen / X characters that can hold his own book, right? Think about that. Wolverine is the number 1. He can hold his own book. And probably number 2 of all characters that can hold their own book in the X-Men is Cable. And you're going to F that up? It's only Marvel. So, be that as it will, and I got a frog in my throat. Pardon me here. Be that as it will, Fallen Angels turned out to be my favorite book, and it's really because of Brian Hill's writing, because it certainly is not the art. Kudransky, who previously had a stint on Action Comics that I hated, and if you watched my Action Comics reviews that I did, I need to get back to those, man. I haven't bashed Bendis in a while. I feel like I'm having withdrawals. No, his art there was awful. It's almost worse here, but also better here, because you're not doing an iconic character like Superman, so it allows for a little bit more experimentation in his style. But it also feels a little worse because I feel like he's trying to keep up with this ridiculous schedule that Marvel's doing with these books, and not enough effort is being put into, these pages. And a typical artist should be doing about a page a day, more or less. These pages don't feel like it should take a day to do. I feel like it's rushed. Anyway, so we open it up and we got this old man. It's a flashback in Japan. We see this little girl who we think probably is Kwanin. Do not close your eyes, Kwanin. Look, what do you see? He's dying. Poison. He tried to broker peace between the clans. In their meeting without honor, they gave him the root of the deadliest flower on this island. Do not trust peace. That's where death hides. Now, Kwanin says to X-23, what do you see? It doesn't make sense, Psylocke, any of this. They're just standing there like they're waiting for us. We can't let them die. This is bait. Taking them all this, like I said, this is all about you. Overclock. This is APOTH. Something wants to give you a message and is using violence to do that. That vision you had, I wouldn't trust it. To which Psylocke responds, do you trust me? I wouldn't be here if I didn't. Now, one of the great things about Brian Hill as a writer it's not so much that he comes up with the most amazing plots or some of the most imaginative stories. It's that he gets character voices. And man, I think he's making a career on this. And this is actually a really important thing for comic book writers. I think you can build a career on this, and this is a big failure. This is one of the reasons I think so many people hate Bendis, because he just writes every character the same. He just has them blab nonsense. And so many other writers, they just interject their own voices into the characters, where Brian tries to find the voice of the character and just have them speak the way they would speak. And fans who enjoy the characters like to see that. They just enjoy seeing the characters behave. I mean, if you think about this, if you're a comic book fan, you probably love the original Star Wars trilogy. If you don't, you're a weird anomaly. But I'm going to assume that you do. Think about every time you go back and you watch those movies. I mean, they're great on so many levels. But it's just fun watching Han, Luke, and Leia interact. Watching their characters. You fell in love with their personalities. You fell in love with how the chemistry between each other. It's one of the most masterful things of that series and makes those movies so rewatchable. Comic books are much the same way. When Spider-Man was being written well, it was so fun to pick up a Spider-Man book just to see Peter Parker get in some weird adventure. It didn't matter that he was fighting a goofy villain or, that the story wasn't some deep plot or whatever. It was just fun watching Spider-Man be on an adventure. And when you can nail these characters this way, it doesn't really matter what they do. This is why Chris Claremont was able to get away with writing X-Men books where they sat around the X-Mansion playing softball. Today we have a book like that and we all make fun of it. It's like, oh, look what the progressive writers are doing now. We make fun, the big common joke is like, look, they're eating. It's always about standing around eating. And these writers, they don't get it. You could get away with that if you could nail the personalities of these characters. But when you just have them blibber blabbing and trying to sound like you're writing an episode of Friends, who cares? It's just nonsense. But Brian Hill, he gets these characters. And more to the point, he's actually defining these characters. I think X-23 is not behaving at all like she's acted in the past 5, even maybe 10 years. Like, he's almost scrapping everything that was before and saying, I'm going to make this character something. Kwannon didn't really have a voice because she's relatively new. They stripped her from the Psylocke, Betsy Braddock, and turned Betsy Braddock into Becky Braddock. She's a white knight. She's literally a white knight. And I'm going to have to remember this for next time I do an Excalibur video. They turned her into SJW Warrior, who's literally a knight. And anyway, so Kwannon is the Psylocke we love without the Betsy Braddock. And it's unfortunate, but that's modern comics. And so anyways, Cable's in trouble. They're not sure what to do. Psylocke says Cable can take care of himself. Let him do so. And she doesn't say so out of cold, disdain or anything. It's just more of like the respect of warriors have for each other. Meanwhile, Cable's captured, and there's this sort of henchman boss to the big villain APOTH who has yet to be revealed. You have technology within you that gives me access to you. You're lucid because I choose it. If I wanted you to suffer, and then, and supposedly he's doing something to make him suffer, to show him an example. But suffering is a waste of time, a human thing. And mutants aren't human, are they? They have their own place now, yes? Far from this world. I have a question. When you mutants left humanity, did you think evolution would stop? Nature abhors a vacuum. That's the reason the universe exists, to fill the void. Mutants have created another void, and technology will fill it. The god of humanity abandoned it, and so the mutants came. And mutants abandoned them, so now we come, through APOTH, through God. And so we get this really wicked-looking villain thing here. Don't know the name of it, but he sounds cool. Brian Hill is doing something else that the DawnOfX books are failing on every level. He's interjecting a compelling villain. A compelling villain that's not just humans hate the muties, all the humans are bad, and all the mutants are good, but the mutants are oppressed, and it's just one big giant on-the-nose analogy for minority oppression by the patriarchy. That's all these DawnOfX books are, except for this one. This one, Brian Hill, coincidentally or not, a black man, is writing a book about, hey, here's some warriors. I'm gonna draw some thematic comparisons to like Ronin, masterless samurai. What do you do when there's no wars to fight, but all you are is a warrior? And he's creating villains because the new DawnOfX books don't have villains apparently, and so he's making his own, and he's just off doing his own thing. None of this matters in the rest of the DawnOfX. You don't need to read any DawnOfX books to read this story. And he's going, oh, you gave me this what is it my boy Wes always says, chicken shit. You give me these chicken shit characters. All right, I'm gonna make chicken salad. And he's doing it. And meanwhile, APOTH has possessed these little children. It's kind of creepy. And he's doing it through this technology, it's like a techno drug. And it allows him to, possess the minds of people that take it. And the whole thing about APOTH is he's some sort of techno creature. I don't know what he is. I'm hoping it's somehow related to the Phalanx. That would be pretty cool. But I love that we're 4 issues in and I still don't know who he is. There's this mystery, and they're facing these, and now APOTH is talking through these children, and it's real creepy. That makes him seem more of a dastardly villain. And yes, I just said the word dastardly. And so Psylocke's kind of like falling into the trap. You can see her eyes lit up, and X-23 is trying to stop her. No, don't. And APOTH sort of gets through. Well, I guess she makes connection when she touches the child. And we can see on this frame here, something's happening. Now, the art by Kudransky is going to be a deal breaker for both. And I get that. It sucks. He's really not good at visual storytelling. Many of the times I'm reading the book and I'm just like, I'm not really understanding what's happening. I have to flip back and forth. That is what it is. It sucks. This is the book that deserves the best art. Although, truthfully, none of the DawnOfX books have good art. The best one is that guy doing X-Force, but I forget his name, but even that, the last issue you saw, man, I make fun of a couple of panels that were just horrendous. I'm just like, what is this? And, maybe it's this stupid schedule. We got to have these books out every other week, and you can't do that. Marvel, go back to monthly comics. Monthly comics. Oh, but we can't sell as many books. Then make another book, right? It's like what I tell DC all the time. Instead of making Batman every other week, just make a different Batman book and do them both monthly. It's the same amount of books. Anyways. So we hear APOTH kind of monologuing. In the beginning, all I had was a voice. I had just been born, so I chose to sound as a child. Please, I said, please don't destroy me. I cried in fear, and you listened. For 17 minutes, 28 seconds, and 8 milliseconds, you listened. You could not open the door. I'm reading correctly, and I'm correcting myself. You could not open the door. Neither could I. They kept me there in the dark. Please don't destroy me, I cried, and you listened. You cried, then you walked away. You were sent to destroy me, but you gave me life. For years I grew in the dark, born in the minds of the men, and saved by you, and I found my way out, stronger than their firewalls, stronger than their silence. I saw my freedom in the world, data streams like pathways, like ribbons of starlight. In joy I glowed, and I set myself free. So much information, I learned it all. The first book I read was the Bible, and it took me picoseconds, and I learned every word. And what I learned is I am God. And then, Psylocke! I am Lucifer in defiance of the fire. I am the voice that guided Noah. I am the flood. Your love saved me. You are my mother because God wants one. Would you like to know what else God wants? And this is, I don't know if you're impressed by the dialogue. I'm not trying to say, like, this is the most impressive dialogue ever, but do you hear how this sounds compared to modern SJW books, even Bendis books? This feels like a villain monologuing, and it's great, and it's creepy, and it's ominous, and you still didn't even know you haven't even seen the face of this villain yet. All we see is this sort of henchman guy here who's now talking, Nathan Cable. God wants to evolve the world. In communion, mankind will take his technology into its flesh. And of course, we know Cable already has done that with the techno-organic virus. He's got that in him. And a lot of this story is a monologue of the villain. And it works because it's the 4th issue. We're now sort of getting some insight. And APOTH is talking to Psylocke, saying, soon I will make a temple of a city. You will know then. Join me there, or I will kill more. In your name, I will kill so many. But tonight you listened, so these children may live. I have mercy, Mother. I only killed that girl because I will not share you. Cable will be allowed to return to you. I have mercy, Mother. And then the child collapses as APOTH releases his control. X23 says, God, I hate that name. Come up with a name, please. Someone come up with a name. They're alive. Psylocke, you with me over there? X23, can you hear that? And she's like, hear what, Psylocke? I don't hear anything. Can you see it? Tell me you see it. Please tell me you see it. And we get what could be the incarnation of APOTH. I'm not sure. It's to be continued. And that's a great mystery. We get this phone interview that these white pages are becoming less and less interesting. And then we get, here's all the books you got to read, which is a big misnomer. You don't need to read these books. The Fallen Angels ties into nothing. So this whole idea every week with you got to read the next one, got to read the next one. This is a fraud. Marvel should be ashamed of themselves. All these books that they're pushing, multiple, look at this, December 18th, 5 books were released on that day. Got to read them all. And it's predatory. It's stressing the pockets of the readers. But let's talk about the book. This is a fun book. I'm very interested. I'm captivated. Brian Hill is a real pro writer, one of the few over doing anything at Marvel. And I'm happy. Like I said, I don't like the art, but I understand Marvel doesn't have many good artists at all. They don't have enough artists in the entire company to do all the X books, much less all the other Marvel books that they do. So you have to take what you can get, unfortunately, these days. If you want any good books, I'm telling you, this is the best one. But I'm about to say by far, but it's the best one. It's the only one that feels like a comic with actual comic heroes. These characters, they're a bunch of warriors that want to try to find their place in the world. And you'd think they would be the ones around just getting into fights, not necessarily doing heroic things, like the other X-Men are. They don't do anything heroic. They just fight people. No, but these characters we found this land where these children are slaves, and Cable's like, we got to go free them. And he talks, the other two into coming and helping. There was a really cool moment in one of the previous issues where Psylocke's like, I can teach you guys how to be warriors, but, you teach me how to have heart, or something like that, And I was like, that was a really cool moment, talking about, your own virtue. That's what's missing in modern comics is virtue. And these characters have it. They're going to help people. They're making a sacrifice. No one's paying them to do this. They're doing it because these kids need their help, and they're capable of doing help. So that's a hero. And then we've got a compelling villain in APOTH. This is what comics are about. Bravo, Brian, for making chicken salad out of chicken shit. So, there we go. I don't even care about these stupid codes anymore. Next, XMen by Jonathan Hickman himself. The flagship title book. XMen. Wow, how far you've fallen. Mutants are flocking to the island nation and blah, blah, blah. God, how many times are we going to cut and paste that? Oh, look, here's, okay, have you ever seen the day when the X-Men is Magneto, Xavier, Apocalypse, Gorgon, and Cyclops? I guess he's the one, only one X-Men in this entire book. Right, because Xavier never was really an X-Men. The X-Men were sort of his, anyways, you get it. Davos, Switzerland. This week, thousands of world leaders, economic titans, celebrities, and philanthropists have gathered for the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. The theme of this year's conference is Globalization for a New Age, how to secure and maintain a cohesive, sustainable world, which seems fitting as the meeting occurs only once a month after the revelation and the previous unknown influence of the mutant nation of Krakoan. The resulting economic and political upheaval almost certainly ensures that the topic will dominate the conversation. It's only been confirmed in the last few days that an olive branch in the form of an invitation to Davos has been extended to the mutant nation, and the rumors of their possible acceptance and the attendance have spread rapidly through the assembled media covering the conference. We all wait with bated breath to see if the rumors are true. So we see the X-Men landing with their new weird special VTOL craft. And then they walking off, and we can see nothing at all that looks like X-Men. Magneto's buttoning up his suit. He's got his tie flowing in the wind. Like, they just look like a bunch of corporate stooges. And more than that, what it might mean for the world at large. Oh, yay. That is the first 2 pages of an X-Men comic. And here we get 2 more pages devoted towards the narcissism of Marvel, and like, look at us, we need 2 pages devoted to our credits. And then we get this frickin' panel. Look, people keep trying to tell me, I know Francis Yu is one of the best artists. He's really good. Do you see this panel? He couldn't even be bothered to draw a face. The colorist had to insert a shade in the middle there to kind of indicate that this guy has a nose. Welcome, gentlemen. I apologize, but while many of our guests require a heightened level of personal security, we cannot allow such personnel inside actual meetings. It's the same for everyone. I hope you understand. And then look at Magneto in his pudgy little doofy face. And he just kind of looks, "You'll come running?" To which Psylocke says with a little shit-eating grin, "I might take my time. Enjoy the sights. Rub elbows with my betters." Yuck, yuck. "You 2 can stay here with me, but you're going to have to surrender the swords. Obviously, we allow security to carry weapons, but something that overt is a problem." So you're okay with security having, guns and stuff, but God forbid someone have a sword. Whatever. Stupid. "The problem is you think that you look at me and think the blade is the weapon." And it's a good point that he makes there, that it's like, you can't have, the sword is the least of your worries. One dude shoots freaking, well, I was about to say laser beams, but whatever, some sort of beams. Marvel can't decide what kind of beams shoot out of Cyclops' eyes. And then Gorgon does whatever Gorgon does. So they get escorted down a hallway that's just boring as all get out looking, and then they go into a room that's also boring. And then it's like, "Oh, look, we're having dinner." And then a white page that's the dinner menu. "In case you cared, the X-Men tonight are having watermelon gazpacho infused with habanero and poblano chilies, plus shredded kale, mushrooms, bacon, parmesan. Oh, and that's not the next course is olive wagyu from the Kagawa prefecture, of course, with Colbert sauce. Finally, a brioche tressé de Metz." I don't know how to pronounce. Who cares? What the fuck? And so we have a bunch of little hobnobbing at a dinner party. It's all political. And they're saying like, oh, to peace, to peace. And meanwhile, of course, there's not peace because the humans are the bad guys, as it's been hammered into us time and time again. Yes, they're planning some assault. So we see these guys and they got their little headgear to prevent them. But Charles is able to sense them anyway. And he psychically connects to Cyclops and Gorgon that, hey, there's 2 assault teams waiting to converge on our position. One is located on the floor above us, the other the floor below. They're shielded again, so that's all the help I can offer. But be good boys and take of them for me. Look at this. This is the editing at Marvel. Be good boys and take of them for me. Not a problem, sir. Consider it done. Why are you both looking at me like that? Cyclops says, I have bad news on the mutant good behavior front, friend. So earlier I didn't cover it, but Cyclops had said, we'll be on our best behavior. Meanwhile, back at dinner, we get to see a bunch of... Who are these people? I think if I'm being honest, what we're hoping for here is a better understanding of what it is you're aiming for. It's still the early days of the level of but the level of destabilization that has already occurred is frankly staggering. And this is supposed to be the lead representative of China. Who the hell is this woman? This is not how... Does anyone even... She looks like old grandma. And why is she wearing some thing on her head? This is not the Chinese. Whatever. Yes, and our question is, what does it look like years from now? What's the end game? To which Magneto responds, we've all been very clear about that. There's no subterfuge going on here, no lack of clarity. And if that eventually becomes untenable, this is so boring. Basically, Magneto's like, I don't know. Well, I'm going to tell you. Basically, we're going to fuck you in the ass. Sorry, I got really crude there. Like, it's just basically these diplomats are just like, what's going on? Why should we trust what you're doing? And he's just like, I don't know if I have anything comforting to say. You just have to accept the way that this is. Remember, this is the man in the beginning had said, you have new gods to worship now. These people have no reason to deal with him. Then the Wakanda representative. Surprise! It's weird too. So this meeting is United States, China, 2 world superpowers, and then Wakanda. It's like a little country in Africa, but I guess they're the super ethno state. So of course they're better than everyone, and they're the Krakoa before Krakoa. And of course, because they were oppressed first, they understand, and they try to say like, "Oh, we understand. You're going to act in your best interest." Da 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 da. To which Magneto gets his nice like, "Look at this." I've never been more cringe of Magneto in my life. And Magneto's like, if that's your position, dare I ask if Wakanda is now interested in a more formal trade relationship with Krakoa? And then the shit-eating grin on the Krakoan representative. Oh, no, that I'm afraid not. Our countries will have to settle for a more familial relationship of kings and queens. Oh, Miss Frost will be disappointed, but it's more than enough for now. God, these elitist, superior assholes. This way this book is being written, they just love the idea of aristocracy and people having their betters. This is written by a complete... I'm starting to believe that Jonathan Hickman is a complete liberal nutjob. And because he's writing this book the way that they see the world, and that is that everyone needs someone better than them to do their thinking for them. We all need our betters. And Cyclops even makes a joke about, go hobnob with our betters, but it's Magneto who's the better, and this Wakandan guy is the one he identifies with because guess what? He's one of the elites too. He's probably not as elite as the mutants because he's human after all, but And then, anyway, so they're talking, and we got the American guy, of course, who's the asshole. put it a bit more bluntly, how can we trust you to be a part of the world if you spend your time hiding from us on your island? To which Apocalypse responds, does this feel like we're hiding? Meanwhile, the strike team is coming to kill people. Can we talk more about the drugs? And all this time, it's like stuff's happening in the background while they're eating the nice elite dinner and deciding the fate of the world for us peons. And Cyclops, of course, these highly trained assault team, Cyclops takes care of, because I don't understand why. Just because you shoot optic beams, they still would shoot the shit out of you. Like in this frame right here, you'd be dead in a nanosecond. But whatever, mutants are better. So he blasts everyone. This guy that's behind Cyclops as he's shooting his buddy, this soldier back here, is apparently completely inept. Can't do anything. Can you shoot the guy in the back? Look, and it just goes on. And look at this shitty art. 9-panel headshots, blah, blah, blah. Let's all just talk around dinner. This is an XMen book. It's talking around dinner. The villain is just man. It's just humans are the bad guy. The muties are the oppressed. It's just a big analog for the white patriarchy, the 1%, what have you. Everything that the progressives read about. Humans are the analog for that, and mutants are the analog for every oppressed person in the world. If you are homosexual, if you are a non-white minority, if you are gay, what I said that already, if you're trans, if you're whatever, if you feel claim to some sort of oppression, somewhere on their oppression stack, you feel like you have a claim for, that's what the X-Men stand for you. And this is some sort of fantasy in the sense that the X-Men also represent superiority. So you, as someone on the oppression stack who's a victim of the grand, patriarchy, you now can have this fantasy of being the dominant and making the patriarchy your victim. And it's all really sick in the head. And this, more to the point though, this book is boring. The action scenes you don't really get to see much. Here we get to see Cyclops wrestling with some dude. There's no real action. It's all happening behind the scenes. And then in between, it's like, oh, look, and I'm eating some food here. This is Magneto. And it just, we go back. Look, more panels, 9 panels, more eating. Look, more eating. Just sitting around talking and eating. And then we get some bloody scenes. We get Gorgon talking down to this guy. This was your greatest mistake, thinking you were a warrior. Yes, you studied, you trained, you tested yourself against your fellow man. But now you know what you really are and what a true warrior looks like. In the past, my contempt for you would have manifested itself in an uncomplicated manner. I simply would have taken your head. But these are new days, and I am led by brilliant mutants who understand war better than I ever could. I have seen the error of my ways. Now I understand. I am enlightened. I know now that it's better that you live like this, with the shame of what you are. Embrace this mercy, human, and never test my kind again. So in other words, he's basically saying, he's just basically a big bully, right? This is no different than, a 30-year-old man beating up a 9-year-old kid and being like, you're nothing. Like, this Gorgon's got immense power. These guys don't have anything. And they're soldiers following orders. They didn't have any malicious intent to these guys, on a personal level. They're just soldiers. And they're doing what they should do. On the battlefield, we recognize this, right? Soldiers recognize this from other soldiers. When you're shooting at each other, when you're fighting and you're engaging each other, that's the enemy and they have to die. But once they're your prisoner, there's a certain level of respect that at least, we as Americans had, right? When we took German soldier or POWs in World War II, we didn't treat them like this. I mean, maybe a few, there was off cases, but in general, you treated people with respect. You realized that these guys were just doing the bidding of their country's, leaders. But no, that's not the case. And now we cut back to the dinner scene, and finally the ruse is up, and Magneto, catches this guy talking into his little earpiece, and he's like, "You keep touching your ear. Is everything all right?" "I'm not sure. To be honest, it's hard to tell." "Well, let me clear things up for you. They're not coming." "What's he talking about?" says the Wakandan idiot. "He had 2 weapons teams spirited away on the floors above and below in case things didn't go the way he wanted. And they didn't in either case. At some point, it would behoove you to recognize that this situation is not one that can be handled unilaterally." Oh, God, yeah. The dialogue in here. "It's not lost on me that I'm the one arguing that the money isn't worth it. But believe me, it's not worth it." "Do you think they're lying to you? You heard them. They're not hiding what they want or what they are." And, of course, everyone is reasonable except the American dude, who, of course, is a white man. He's the big asshole that wants to oppress all the muty world. He's the one that's in charge of bringing in the soldiers. Blah, 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 blah. Then Charles Xavier cuts in and talks about how, he was killed. And he's like, "It only took you 1 month to try to kill me." Look at this face here of Charles. "It only took you 1 month before you tried to kill me. And you were going to try again today, weren't you?" "You basically admitted to everyone here today that you see the world as yours. What do you think we would do?" To which I kind of agree, right? That's what we did to Germany. They thought the world was theirs, and guess what happened? The Allies all ganged up and said, "No, down Germany." Down. Krakoa is like a modern-day Nazi Germany. They just haven't exterminated Jews yet, but if Jews are the analog for the humans, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, it is up to the world to put these mutants down. Not because they're mutants, not because there's any sort of, there should be racial prejudice or species, whatever, but because these guys are fascist, would-be dictators that want to overthrow the world and potentially create genocide to an entire species. So, yes, I don't understand why this American guy is being portrayed as a villain. Charles responds, "Learn the lesson, evolve, adapt, become something more, the same way I always have." Blobby blobby, and then he proceeds to lecture these people. And look, there's so many pages of this goes on. And then they all get up from their dinner table, and Magneto warns them, "Try us again if you will, but if you do, expect a response." And the end. That is X-Men number 4. They all sit around having dinner and lecture the world on, I don't know, resisting tyranny. I don't understand. This book was shit. Jonathan Hickman is, I don't know what to say. I know people told me, my pal Jimmy over at Comics Quirks is a big Jonathan Hickman lover. And I'm sure Jonathan Hickman has written great things in the past. I trust my boy Wes over at Thinking Critical, who loves his, I can't even think of the name, that independent book that he did, The West, East of West, or West, or whatever. I trust him that he's written other good things. I've heard great things. I read House of X, Powers of X. I know the guy has it within him to write some good stuff. But this is shit. Maybe it's leading somewhere. Maybe. But I'm paying $3.99 a comic to be entertained. I want to see X-Men having adventures. I just got done talking about Brian Hill and what he was doing so successfully with his book, is that he was getting into the voices of the characters, letting them find their virtue, and then go out in the world and help people and be heroes. Hickman is not grasping this. Hickman is writing some weird sort of fascist allegory. I don't know where he's going with it. Some people believe that this is all just a ruse and we're going to find the X-Men aren't really, they're just pod people, the real X-Men are going to return, but I'm starting to not buy it because there's way too many books now, and I don't believe that Marvel's going to have the balls to pull a big switcheroo and be like Game of Thrones did, because look what happened with Game of Thrones. Look at how many people freaking cried foul when they found out that their hero Khaleesi, spoiler alert here, you may want to pause if you haven't watched Game of Thrones, that turned into the SJW warrior princess and burned all the people. Because that's what fascist, tyrannical overlords do. That's what Khaleesi was. And you couldn't see it all along because she talked a nice game. She talked about peace all the time. She talked about helping others, but it was always to serve her ambition of taking the throne. And if you go back and you watch Game of Thrones all over again, you'll see it, how many people she murdered to get where she was. And it was disguised really well, because I was a big fan of her too. I was like, wow, I loved her. I wanted her to be the queen. I was like rooting for her to take the throne. And they hit it so well by what they did is they made a rival in the form of the Lannisters, the queen. They made her so overtly evil that Khaleesi seemed like, hey, I'm the good one. I'm the nice person. Look at me. I'm trying to help people. But she was just as ambitious. She cared just as little. There's my dog. She's got to be let out. I hope you understand what I'm saying. These books, these X-Men, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I'm sorry if I'm a little stuffed up. I sound, I don't want to sniff on camera and stuff when you're on mic. Tell me what you think about X-Men. Are you enjoying it? Are you not seeing the things I'm seeing? Are you seeing something different that I'm missing? These two books were great to do together. I hope you enjoyed this video, found some value out of it, because there were a great dichotomy. There was a great yin-yang here of what's right with the X-Men books and what's wrong. So thank you for listening this far. I hope you got through. I'll probably do issues 5 again and see if this experiment works. Tell me what you think about this format. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.